So it turns out that anxiety is the word we use to describe how you are in fight or flight physiology. It's a description of your survival state.
Yeah.
I don't know how that became a psychological diagnosis because it describes your fight or flight physiology.
Right.
As a result of stress, it's not the cause. It is not a psychological diagnosis. It's just a description. And every living creature survives by avoiding the sensation that humans call anxiety. The problem is if we treat anxiety psychologically, that response is a million times stronger than your conscious brain. So talk therapy actually is completely not helpful. And we'll talk about these ruts in a second, which are repetitive, unpleasant thoughts. So the way you have physiology elevated, and again, I'll just jump right to really quickly. I put together, my book, Back in Control. I think this will be in the show notes. I have a resource called Direct Your Own Care Journey, which again it's called Dynamic Healing. There's ways of processing input. You can increase the resiliency of your nervous system, and you can lower the physiology, and they become automatic. This is not hard to do. It becomes just the way you live your life. So it's actually not hard. So it's complex, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to lower threat physiology.
Yeah.
There's at least 50 different ways to do that, maybe more. I'll tell people, look, it's a 1,000,000-to-1 ratio. Your anxiety, by the way, if you can't solve anxiety, you put in more of a stress response, you become angry.
Yep.
Anxiety and anger are the same entity. So your inability to escape something causing anxiety creates threat physiology. And when you can't escape it, you crank it up and become angry. So all sorts of stresses we can't escape. Remember, the most stressful stress is the stress that you can't escape. Maybe finances, maybe lack of opportunity, chronic pain, if you're trapped in that. So when you're trapped, you get really, really fired up. But every chronic disease has a common root cause, clear down to the DNA level and the mitochondrial level at the cellular level, that Parkinson's, dementia, cardiac disease, peripheral vascular disease, hypertension, obesity, cancer, autoimmune disorders, every chronic disease is the same root cause of sustained stress physiology. So I had migraine headaches, my ears were ringing, my feet were burning, skin rashes were popping up all over my body, my stomach was a mess, I had back pain, neck pain. But the worst part of it was the anxiety. And I thought it was psychological. I went to psychotherapy for 13 solid years. That's a lot. That's a lot of psychotherapy. And it got worse, way worse.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing multiple doctors. Nobody could tell me what was going on. And by the way, in the middle of this whole thing in 2009, I developed esophageal cancer that I got picked up by accident. I got extremely lucky to be here. So again, cancer has been well documented to be related to stress. And people think that stress is a psychological construct. Well, it's everybody, including myself, but it's not. It's your body's responding to perceived or real danger.
Yeah.
The stresses are your threats. And your body's response is, again, we're going to get rid of the word anxiety and anger. You have activated threat physiology, then you have hyperactivated threat physiology. Now, the reason I went into this detail, because these thoughts, again, this is a physiological process. Thoughts are input, your emotions are what you feel. So you look at sensory input with unpleasant thoughts, and you experience them, and your body's in threat physiology. So as the threat physiology causing the symptoms, and so the thoughts are the input, but the symptoms result from the threat physiology.
Yeah.
And what we do, again, with physical pain, there's a nociceptive withdrawal response. You automatically withdraw your hand. Pain resolves. And it's a danger signal. Anxiety is just a danger signal. Avoiding that sensation drives all animal behavior, including humans. There's a driving force. Again, it's a million times stronger than your conscious brain. So you have this unpleasant thought. You go into some level of threat physiology. Then you suppress the thought. It gets even worse. We all know when you try not to think about something, you think about it more. So the thing that drives your thought patterns is the need for mental control. Because remember, emotional pain and physical pain are processed in similar parts of the brain, and it hurts. You hurt my feelings, you broke my heart. And for me personally, the mental pain in the form of OCD was a nightmare. I thought I was done. I've been really clear with the world. I was actively suicidal in 2002. I barely made my way through it. I have 20 medical colleagues that are dead from suicide. Suicide in medicine is a big problem.
Yeah.
It turns out that the people that are most prone to this process of these unpleasant thoughts are high-level professionals. So let's go into the mechanics of repetitive unpleasant thoughts. So the problem is you have sustained unpleasant thoughts. And I don't like the term OCD. And honestly, if 3 to 4% of the population has OCD, that's a lot. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
When I talk to people, especially people in their teens and 20s, but I think it's every age group, people don't want to talk about these thoughts. Everybody has them. Here's the deal. It's a human condition, this inability to escape our thoughts. So let me go into the outline of how do you solve these things. Okay, so if you experience the thoughts, it's a problem. If you suppress them, it's a problem even more. So it's like spinning a basketball on your finger. If you think about the thoughts, you're spinning the basketball. If you try not to think about the thoughts, you're spinning the basketball even faster. What you have to do, there's two parts of healing. One of them is I call the sequence of healing: connection, confidence, and creativity. I'll go into that in a second. But you have this fight or flight physiology, anxiety and anger, that are gifts. If we didn't have anger and anxiety, we'd not be alive. They're keeping us alive. They're doing their job. And we tend to feel ashamed, guilty, all these unpleasant words we use. But they're supposed to be incredibly unpleasant because they're survival sensations. The species of creatures who didn't pay attention to these cues just didn't survive. So these danger signals have to be loud enough that you are compelled to pay attention. So they're a million times stronger than your conscious brain. Mind over matter doesn't work. Doing battle with them makes it even worse. Suppressing them makes it even worse. So what do? And the answer is you simply lower threat physiology.
Through things like breath work, tapping.
Right. You can process the input differently. You can increase the resiliency of your nervous system. You can calm down the physiology. But what doesn't work is talk therapy or positive thinking. It suppresses things.
To me, that seems like it perpetuates the same cycle that's there. You're just like talking about your thoughts, which is almost a form of suppressing them.
There's 4 steps to healing. The first one is thought diversion. The second is calming down the nervous system. The third is actually moving into creative circuits, away from the circuits. And the fourth one is dissolution of the ego.